Hi, my name is Daniel Chacon. I am with the Elisa and Rush Burn Foundation. We do a different couple of programs throughout the year. I forgot what you asked the prompt to be, Kristen. I completely
just what your role at camp is.
Got it. I'm the assistant director of the organization. So at camp, I'm more of the liability, recruitment of the campers, the administrative side of the camp organization. We have a volunteer camp director who runs the programmatic side of it. I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Quinn. I'm a clinical mental health counselor and the psychosocial program coordinator for the University of Utah Burn Center. And technically my role would be director of our camp programs. Madeline?
Hi, my name is Madeline. I'm the Director of Youth Programs at Burns Recovered Midwest Children's Burn Camp. And we have a volunteer camp director, and our entire staff is volunteer. And so I kind of just do the administrative side of camp, like ACA stuff, and also working on infusing trauma-informed principles of care into camp. So, yeah. Do I just pass it to anyone? Valerie.
Hi, I'm Valerie Smart. I'm the program manager for survivor services at the Firefighters Burn Institute. And we have a couple camps for kids and we do adult camps as well. Our executive director, Joe Pick, is our camp director, and he was camp director before he became our business's executive director. So he couldn't be here today, but I know he says hello. So thank you. Oh, and I'm the camp administrator. JD.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I am with Camp IABC, which is up in Washington State. I am the camp director, and this coming year will be my 28th year of being involved with Camp IABC. I started when I was 1, so you do the math. And we are an all volunteer organization, so we do it all, from the camp planning to the administrative side to the actual facilitation and running of camp. So I've got a great team around me, and I'm also honored to be sitting on the IABC board as well. So, anyway.
I am so glad that you pronounce your camp name, because I would not have guessed that is how it's pronounced.
So it's really easy. This is what I tell everybody. It's E, as in, E. Yob, like a corn cob, and suit, like a man's suit, and put it all together. Yob suit. Yob suit. And it means to rise above anything. How about Riley?
Hello, my name's Riley. I'm with the Illinois Fire Safety Alliance and Camp I Am Me. I'm the full-time staff leg of camp planning, so I'm the program coordinator, and then I kind of help Chris Logston, he's our camp director, and Dottie Abby, she's our program director. So they kind of are like the head honchos, and then I help them accomplish what they're working towards. And then I'll throw it to Kristen. Did you go yet?
I went, I think.
Okay, Tim?
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Tim Schutz. I am with the Burn Camps program at Children's Hospital, Colorado. Many of you know our camp director, Trudy Bolter. I help her. I am the other duties as assigned guy. Seriously though, up at camp, I'm really more of the documentarian. So I help a lot with, my job title is outreach coordinator. So I'm really documenting the camp experience through video, photography, things like that. And then I primarily work with donors to help raise money for the camp's program.
Sheila?
Yep. Well, I sort of feel like a fish out of water. I am the burn program coordinator here at Nationwide Children's Hospital, and we have had a day camp for the last 5 years. This would have been our 6th year, and it's called the Healthy Healing Burn Camp. And I was sort of the instigator of that. So, but I have been able to step aside, and we have our child life specialist actually is the coordinator. So I'm more of the facilities. I, arrange the facility. We recruit people, but we're sort of in transition right now because of COVID. We sort of were struggling. I really wanted to do a virtual camp, but I couldn't. We got incredibly busy in our burn center during COVID, so we just didn't have the bandwidth to do that. So we're actually looking at joining on with the Flying Horse Camp that is actually here in Ohio. It's called. It's called Flying Horse, but it's the Paul Newman camps. So it's the, we call them hole in the wall camps. So we're looking at sort of incorporating our camp within their camp. So would I still be able to be a part of this organization? I guess I'm sort of trying to figure out where, and if I do belong. I'm a proponent of camp, so I believe in it wholeheartedly. if that's a qualification, or what do you guys think?
Well, why don't you do this, Sheila? Why don't you join us for today's session, and then one of the board members, so JD mentioned herself as a board member, Madeline and Tim are both members, Mackenzie, who hasn't gone, and Chris and I are board members. We can connect with you afterwards and see if it was a good fit for you and whether or not you're interested in learning more about the IABC. We can talk a little about us as an organization, our membership, because it is a membership in an organization that you pay dues to and that you fill in an application for, but we can definitely have this conversation. But why don't you just join in the call and listen in?
I have already done that. I've already joined. I already paid the due. Well, the due should be forthcoming. I talked to the billing manager, and she has sent the funds in, so I will be legal.
Yeah. So I'll take the my dog says that he'll take the action. Anyway, I'll take the action of getting a hold of you, Sheila, and talking about that transition over to a camp facility that has their own staff. So we have a number of camps that do the same thing. So.
Okay. Wait, so do you think it's appropriate I stay on this call?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Sheila, hey, real quick, what location, which nationwide are you at?
We're in Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus. Okay.
Yeah. It's a pediatric facility solely. We admit about 200 burns a year.
Are you still friends with, is Jeremy still out in that area?
Jeremy, I don't know.
Jeremy was with the Cincinnati Shrine.
Shriners.
And is the Cincinnati Shrine, I know they're doing a hospital within a hospital model in Columbus now. Is that you guys?
No. They're going to go to Dayton. From what
Yes. Okay.
They're going to Dayton. I think, yes. But that hasn't happened yet. So that's in the process. But we have 3 pediatric centers in Ohio. There's Akron, and then there's us, and then there's Shriners.
Okay. That's fantastic. Yeah, there are quite a few burn camps. I think our Illinois folks could speak to this too, that operate as a camp within a camp. And there's some real benefits to that, it sounds like.
Yeah, when we did it before, we actually just used what I would call a shell of a camp. It was called Recreation Unlimited, and we did all the programming. We, staffed the day camp. We just basically brought it all with us. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. They're still trying to figure out whether or not they can take us on, and if not, then we'll go back to the other plan that we had. But I'd love to hear, what really got me interested in you guys is your virtual approach to camp. So, I sort of heard about you in the past. I've attended some ABA, meetings where you guys were present, but I think you guys have really taken off over the last 5 years, correct?
The IABC has been around for, is it close to 20 years?
Actually, more than 20 years.
Yeah. And but I
Yeah.
think the presence at the ABA, the kind of some of the real outreach work that the IABC boards have been doing over the past 5 to 10 years have probably made them a little bit more visible. But I think this past year with the advent of COVID, the board and the organization made a huge concerted effort to really band together and problem solve and learn together. And so we've been, in the beginning of COVID, we were meeting weekly via Zoom, and then we cut back to twice a month and now once a month. And but in the beginning, we were really actively problem solving and all, you know, this worked, this didn't work. Danielle was doing Zoom tutorials for us all. We were figuring it out really as a group. And I think there was a ton of strength in that shared problem solving and shared knowledge.
Yeah, and I think we'll definitely have a space today to have a conversation about what virtual camps will look like, as some of us are probably going to be venturing into that for 2021. Let's go ahead and finish the round of introductions. I think Mackenzie, you were next.
Sure. I am Mackenzie. I work for Georgia Firefighters Burn Foundation in Georgia. I work with our programs, outreach. I'm also like Tim. I do a little bit of everything else myself, like most of us in nonprofit. And I also serve on the board. So I'm happy to be with you. Oh, and this is Hensley. She's my assistant / loudmouth. So I'll stay muted mostly.
Thanks, Mackenzie. And then looks like BJ.
Hi guys, I'm Great Lakes Burn Camp. I just joined you so that I could see what's going on. I'm new to this program. I'm new to you guys. I'm just trying to educate myself so that I can make this happen for our kids.
Great, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. I think that's everyone, right? Everyone's gone through a round of introductions. All right, well, let's go into just what people are thinking for 2021. It is January. I don't know if anyone has potential camp dates or camp ideas for this year, but if anyone wants to kick us off, there's no formal format. We're really just going to be sharing what we imagine this year to look like for camp. So whether that be virtual, hybrid, in-person day camp, a family camp, modification to your kids camp, or you are going forth for a full back to normal camp. Anyone who wants to start, more than welcome to.
I'm happy to go. We got the news from one of our benefactors where we hold physical camps that they're not holding any of their camps again this year. So we knew by the end of last year that we would be doing it virtually again. So we're going to keep the month, but based on a lot of feedback from this camp group and other groups that I've seen, we decided to avoid just doing the 1 week of camp. And I'm still hammering out the schedule, but I think we'll shoot for most weekends of the month we're doing camp. So I'm excited to do that. The families seem really excited to do that. And I'm a little bit worried about the logistical nightmare of that many activities / boxes, but we'll figure it out.
So tell me more about you. So for 1 month, you'll do activities over the weekend?
Yeah, I'm thinking of Fridays and Saturdays right now. So like something Friday evening, and then maybe a couple on Saturday. But yeah, we spoke with one of our camp families earlier this week. Actually, they were in our office, and Joe mentioned it to them, and they just kind of like lit up because they thought, oh, it was such a bummer after that week was over and there was no more camp. So it's like, okay, that sold me on it. I was already kind of leaning that way.
That's an interesting concept. I like it.
Yeah.
Spreads the fun out, so to speak. Yeah.
And I'm hoping it's going to be easier on our volunteers, because since we did do weekdays this past year, and we had times during the day and then times in the evening, sometimes it was a little tricky to get those volunteers, even though a lot of them had already blocked that week off. By the time we canceled camp and then reinstated virtual camp, they'd either come up with other plans or, you know, something like that. So
right.
I hope it'll work better.
Will you do camp in a box again?
that's the idea, but that's the logistical nightmare I'm worried about. Is, am I going to stuff 4 weeks of activities into one box? Am I going to send multiple boxes? I don't know yet.
We did like, we had our camp in a box and we had like the daily art activities. So we had a folder for each day that had the art supplies you'd need for each day in that folder. And then we had all, the camp swag and everything, but that was kind of generic. And then on the online portion, the activities that either were pre-recorded or live coincided with what was in their box. So they could kind of go, oh, Monday's the blue day. We'll open up Monday. And then they could follow along and then kind of use the activities from that. Like some of the folders were really stuffed. Some of them weren't that bad.
We did similar. We had most of our stuff in big Ziploc bags and then labels on those bags. But what we also did, and Valerie, I don't know if you guys have this, we have a Facebook group. It's a closed group for camp. And so the day before we were going, or the day of camp, we were posting what that day's activities were going to be, what bag they needed, all of the basically the details for that day or the next day. And that worked out really well because then the parents were watching that as well and they knew how to be prepared for it. So.
Sorry, I tried to hit unmute and I didn't hit it the first time, but I like that a lot. And I was thinking of something like that. We don't currently have a Facebook group for our campers and families. We have one for the counselors. That is actually their own thing. And I'm kind of just like in there, whether they like it or not.
We have one for the
but and I was kind of worried because I know our camp is 7 to 17-year-olds. And so I know a lot of the kids just aren't going to have Facebook. So I would hope that the parents do, especially because like Facebook isn't as cool for the kids anymore. So that's a bummer.
I know.
Sorry, I'll mute myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, Valerie, we did a similar thing to what both JD and Kristen said, and we mailed these boxes. They were good size, and I was shocked. These were only $16 to ship. So you could easily get 5 to 6 activities. I mean, we had water bottles and backpacks and headlamps and 5 folders stuffed with activities of pillows, bag tags, name tags, all kinds of stuff. So you could, again, it wasn't as expensive and it would save you the headache. You would only have to do 1 round of boxes, and then you could almost make it a contest to see those kids or campers that wait to open their envelope get entered into some sort of contest. So did you wait for each week, right?
Yeah, good luck with that.
That does sound fun, but kids love the competition.
They really do.
I love this, maybe a shameless plug. We did create a Google Drive folder for anyone who wants to upload any of the things that they did for last year's camp onto that Google Drive. I think there's like only 1 or 2 camps, so please enter that stuff in. I have a lot of questions just on this topic because it's something that I'm thinking about of virtual programming, but like I see your sticker or maybe is a label, Tim, but like I want to know where people are doing, if they're doing custom branded boxes, or they're doing custom tape, packing tape, or all those things. So if you have that information, drop it in, I think, into the chat, or better yet, put it onto a Google Drive so all the other camps can look at that. Also very curious, since it's on the top of my head, a reusable or a more eco-friendly packaging. I've been using Ziploc baggies to organize all of my supplies for crafts or for the days. But I would love to know if people have a more friendly to the earth environment. So instead of me using a lot of plastic, I would be interested in that. But thank you, Valerie, for sharing what you guys are doing. Who would like to share next about what they plan on doing this year?
I will. Oh.
No, you can go ahead. I was going to say the chat is disabled for some reason. So I just wanted to say that. Go ahead, Maddie.
We are doing in-person camp 2 sessions, and session 1 is our older age group, 14 to 17-year-olds, and session 2 is our middle and youngest age group, so 6 to 13-year-olds. Instead of a week of camp, they will be there for 4 nights and 5 days with a full day in between for the camp that we rent from to like clean and things like that. We're doing cabin cohorts. We activated, I don't know if you use Camp Doc, there's a pre-screening feature on Camp Doc. So we activated that. So for 10 days before coming to camp, they'll take their temperature and answer a series of screening questions. We're going to have RNs at each pickup point to like do a health screening before they get on the bus. Usually we do that at camp, but if for any reason a child can't get on the bus, like we want to just do it at the point where the caregivers are. So there's not like, well, they're already there at camp. And we are reducing the capacity. So last year we had about 110 MCVC people on campus, but now for each session, there's only going to be 50% of that. So 55, not good at math. And basically I made a contingency plan this week, and kind of the trigger for like our plan A is what we have now, plan B is virtual. And we're all in. I mean, the triggers are if Tom Sock closes, or if there's suddenly restrictions on the number of people who can gather, like statewide, and this is Missouri, there's not, or in the county that the camp is located, Reynolds County. So that's our plan. Especially with the, you know, we're not even talking about the vaccine in terms of like expectations for who's going to have it and who's not. Yes, Kristen, because we know that young people won't have access to it. And if all of our adults come and they're vaccinated, that's great, but that still doesn't protect the young people from getting the virus. So we're still doing like mask wearing, and then we're trying to figure out what transportation is going to look like in terms of putting them on charter buses. In fact, I think there's a ACA town hall at the end of the month about running in 2021. And for the question, like, what do you want the panelists to answer? And I was like, can you specifically address if you transport your campers to camp on charter buses? Because we're also looking at not spending as much money as we did last year, and transportation is probably one of the most expensive things. So yeah, that's what we are. And I would be interested, so we are having a young adult retreat next month in Kansas City where we're requiring the attendees to use the pre-screening feature. So I will definitely let you all know how that went in terms of compliance, in terms of thoroughness. Did it capture as much data as we needed? Did it keep the virus from coming to the retreat? And I think that the last thing that I'll say is what I've had to really train myself to do or repeat to myself is that the mantra of it's not a matter of if the virus comes to campus, it's a matter of what do you do when it does come to campus, because when it's so widespread, when you gather that many people, you just have to assume that someone has been exposed, even if they don't know that they are. So it's kind of like, how do we mitigate that risk? And I've been very upfront at using language in all my communication about reducing risk, not necessarily keeping the virus out, because we just know that's not possible. So.
Yeah, so we're kind of like you, Maddie. We're doing plan A, plan B, plan C kind of thing. Plan A is we get to hold in-person camp. I'm kind of fortunate that the facility that we use is owned by a school district. And so they will be following whatever the state hands down as far as requirements, and then what requirements and guidelines that the school district itself has. During the school year, that facility is typically used for an outdoor school. And fourth graders and sixth graders go up there for a week to learn about nature and the environment. So they are expecting by March or possibly April to be able to start bringing the kids back in, because all the teachers will be vaccinated and all the staff up there will be vaccinated. And so they have taken our tentative camp dates, the end of July, and obviously will be keeping us posted. The director up there did say that all adults would be required to have a vaccine, and at that point, which about 50% of my staff is firefighters and healthcare workers. But for the other 50, some of them are in their 20s and 30s, and how we're going to be able to finagle them to kind of jump the line, it might be a challenge. So plan B is a hybrid type of thing, and then obviously C is having to do the virtual again. So, but we're all hopeful.
Wow. Mandating vaccinations. Valerie and I live in another world. We live in liberal California, where I don't foresee us being able to probably have a camp in June. Maybe we're hopeful, we're planning for it. But even the idea of mandate vaccinations, that's not something that Californians necessarily do. Even for my camp as it is, outside of COVID, other vaccinations, parents could do a opt-out situation by writing a letter saying that there's a religious or other form of reason why they don't believe in it, and that it's sufficient because it's at their own risk. Their kid is the one who's not vaccinated, so it's up to them. They just sign that they're not going to sue us and get us in trouble if they actually get something. So very interesting to hear what other states are doing. Anyone else want to share?
I'd be happy to go. We've made the decision just organizationally to do everything virtually until the fall, but just to really be able to make some serious plans. We just are, like probably a lot of you, we have a lot of fire service board members, and so fire chiefs who are on the front lines making those decisions and are really hesitant for us to be, do anything in person. And so I feel a lot of freedom knowing that, just so it's like to plan and move forward. So I'm kind of excited about that. I think we're going to break it up and do things several times a month. I'm sure we'll have some camp component in the summer, but to really try to do more touch points more often, instead of just larger things, kind of what Valerie was saying, instead of something like very intense for 1 week, but really trying to just increase the touch points. I think we all know how hard the isolation has been, and just not having a real way to consistently meet with people. So I think that that's going to be more of our focus this year, is really trying to just engage consistently and having different opportunities for families. We do our camp facility. We partner with an organization to do our camp facility, and so they are open for weekend programming. So we are going to consider doing some family programming as well on the weekends. We have this idea, and I kind of have this hope we can do it, to do kind of a firefighter retreat weekend where firefighters and their families can go for some respite. So we'll see if that comes together, but that's what we're working on. And just a little tidbit here in Georgia. So my husband's a firefighter, and he got his vaccination, and he said about only 40% of the department chose to opt in to have the vaccination. So I don't know. I see how that trends across the country. And and it was a doozy on him. He's really struggled with it.
Yeah, interestingly, my husband's fire department is at about 95% for taking the vaccination. So that's awesome. They still have part-timers and some admin people that just haven't been pulled up the list yet. But so far, as active duty people working in the field, 95% of them have taken the vaccination, but
That's
other
really
departments around us
amazing.
are not that high.
Yeah, that's amazing, Kristen. Saw, not to get too like sidetracked, but I saw an article or a news thing about their chief, because their chief said originally he wasn't going to get it, and then he ended up getting it and was like, "This is a statement for everybody." And so, which I thought was interesting that he admitted he was against it early on, and I was like, "Well, it's okay to change your mind and have a different." So that's interesting.
Yeah. So in Utah, I've been asked to write a plan to reduced risk, hold all of our programs live, and then to have 2 backup plans for each of our programs. So I'm still in that limbo place of really hoping that we can hold in-person camp, but one of my backup plans for our kids program, which is 6 to 13-year-olds, is I would just have half the camp for a fewer number of nights at a time, so that we have fewer people at camp and less people in cabins and can kind of spread out more. We also basically just use the shell of a Boy Scout camp, and we bring in a trailer with all of our camp stuff, and everything is run by volunteers. I'm the only paid person. So I'm being told I have to require all adults, so the full-time counselors and volunteers, to be vaccinated. But we can't require that of kids, especially because the vaccine's not been offered, but also because we're in Utah and there are lots of people who are not vaccinating their kids for anything in Utah. So, yeah, it's kind of tricky. The other question that I think will come up that I'll have to have in a contingency plan is we take lots of kids from other states. And one of the things Utah did early on was sort of restrict travel from state to state. So one of my first limitations that I had to live up to last year was I had to tell everybody from out of Utah that they couldn't come to camp. That was like my first hard phone call. So yeah, I'm not sure what we'll do about that for next year or for 2021. So yeah, I'm a little envious of people who just have the solid plan of, yes, we're doing it virtually and nothing else, because then at least you have a plan and you can move forward. But I am really excited about the possibility of doing in person. So
I'll go ahead and echo Kristen, because we have campers from 7 or 8 states that travel to our camps, and that travel piece is the most difficult. It's the air travel, it's the transportation up to camp, because it's once they get into DIA, Denver International, it's another 2.5 hour drive up to camp. So there are all sorts of travel issues. And then if a camper's from Minnesota and gets sick in Colorado, how do we get them back home? So potentially requiring parents to be on the hook for transportation to and from camp seems a bit heavy-handed, but at the same time, it may be the only choice. Additionally, like other people have said, we are at the discretion of other camps. We use a YMCA camp, we use Chile, Colorado. So our plans are kind of overlaid or dependent upon what they do. And we are still in conversations with them about what our camps will look like. So we are hopeful, but planning for a little like JD, A, B, and C, all in person, hybrid, or all virtual again.
I had a response to the transportation concern. So we talked with our insurance broker and kind of landed on the assumption of risk disclosure that caregivers need to sign. We put a sentence that said, I understand that if in the determination of the camp nurse, if my camper is displaying symptoms consistent with the COVID-19 diagnosis, it is my responsibility to pick up my camper within 12 hours of receiving a phone call from the camp nurse. And then saying, like, we will not transport campers and then staff who are COVID suspect. I think that for any situation, we're already planning on doing a lot of education, like phone calls, making sure, like, I just want to make sure that you understand the expectation here, because, and we've always been very clear with our families that if they can't comply with like coming to get a camper or something like that, like our next phone call is the police. And, you know, it sucks, but we can't be responsible for someone with a communicable disease. And if that means that this year they don't send their kid to camp, we've already talked a little bit about during evening programs, somehow having that virtual so that they can still participate in some way. But I think just being very clear about, you know, it might not be fair, but that's just we can only do so much as a camp.
So Maddie, you brought up a really good topic, because this is one of the things I was just talking to our facility about, and that's insurance. Has anybody else reached out and talked to their insurance? I don't know how you guys handle yours, but ours is an event policy that covers that week. And then there is a parallel medical rider, I guess you would say, that goes on top of that. And so I don't even know if they'll insure us medically, you know, if we go in person. Has anybody else even asked their insurance groups?
Yeah, there's an exclusion for communicable diseases on our policy. So we're just hoping that, yeah, right, that commercial and general liability will cover anything that comes up.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a direct conversation about like, if we haven't, like, what are liabilities and exposures here in terms of COVID? And there's no specific protection for communicable diseases.
Yeah, same here. I think our situation is a little different than yours, JD, just because we have a organizational general insurance policy for all of our events, and we have to be upfront with what the events are going to look like, even online programming. I did put in the chat information, just because the topic has turned into communicable disease and like, what do you do with transportation and all that. If you have not already formalized your communicable disease plan, or you would like someone to review it, the American Camping Association, or the American Nursing Camping Association, I always get confused. I flip-flop those all the time. But the president and the chair of it, she's fantastic, and she does a really good job. So she's hosting a workshop. It is a paid thing, so if you're not a member of them, you have to pay a larger amount. But honestly, it's a working workshop, and it's going to be like a 4-hour workshop where they help you write it out. So if you need help with that, or someone to review it, or if you haven't started it, great place. It's going to happen this month, and I really encourage you to do it. I'm also going to put in the chat right now information on a session that I attended through the ACA local. Our local conference was this past week in California. So I attended our SoCal and NorCal conference, and I attended a workshop that was talked about the effectiveness of camps during COVID. We're focused on camps that ran in person in 2020. Some of them were day camps, some of them were even overnight camps that happened. And again, the president was it was a study. So they looked at the data to see like what was effective. They said within this, and I encourage you to look at this video and recording of it, but they said more kids were getting affected in schools, in pod schools, than they were at camp. And that there were no people who participated in this camp study that they were monitoring were infected during this whole camp process. And they have a few ideas why. They said at the end of the day, yes, there were a lot of precautions taken. There were a lot of testing that was done within it. But a big part of it had to do with camp is outdoors. And the beauty of being outdoors really is the reason why people aren't catching it as much as when people are in closed doors. So they talked a little bit to Madeline about transportation in terms of buses. They really recommend opening windows when you're traveling, and that they really recommended that parents come, and I think especially for the medical staff, but that when parents would come and drop off their kids is that they would have all the windows, they would have the window of the kid down, they would do a temperature check of the kid. If they pass the temperature check, then they would allow the kid to come out, and the parent would just take off. The parent doesn't get out of the car, No one from the family gets out of the car. It is the camper and one parent, and all they're doing is scanning the temperature check, and that they were encouraging personal drop off. And they said that was the best thing for all the medical staff, for all the camps that they did, because they didn't have to deal with the parents. They handed over the medication and it was clear and done. So really encourage you to check out these 3 workshops: the ACA Town Hall, the Communicable Disease Plan workshop, and then that recording was really, really great.
So Daniel, I think I really appreciate you throwing that up there, because I think even if you know, we do an in-person camp this year, some of the things that they did with those that went last year, like, you know, the parents don't get out of the car, you know, you're doing the temp check before the kids, you know, I really like that, just as a precaution for this year. That's so I think there's probably a lot we can glean from that when we put our plan together. So thanks.
Yeah, especially for all of us who didn't have camp. None of us, Anita was the only one who did. I think Anita, to my knowledge, in North Carolina was the only camp that had a day camp, and it was a day camp. So, and that's even different, right? What's the difference between a day camp versus an overnight camp, and the additional precautions you had? We talked about at our camp, if we were going to do an overnight camp, our bunks, we would have them do feet to toes in every direction. So no 2 campers' heads are facing each other where there would be exposure. And then we talked about looking at AC ventilations and making sure that there was, what was the airflow in the cabin. So there's a lot of different things you can definitely come up with, but they had some great ideas.
Yeah, sounds like it. Thanks.
What about you, Riley? What are you guys planning on doing out in Chicago, Illinois area?
We're kind of in the group of limbo people. We got some guidance from our host site. It's a YMCA campground. And so they have some regulations that if we do go forward with, we know we'll have to comply with. And that would impact like outside vendors. We have our big fun fair event and like horseback riding. So replacing those programs, and then yeah, like the sleeping arrangements and transportation arrangements, like all the stuff you guys are talking about are kind of what we're talking about. So we're kind of doing the same thing that Kristen mentioned, where we're in planning mode for ideal, which is camp in person overnight, and then a day camp or some sort of variation, like Madeline said, maybe where we split the campers up or something. So we're still figuring it out here.
Awesome. And then Sheila, I know that you were listening and you had some ideas in terms of, you guys didn't do virtual camp. I'm not sure. It sounds like you may be looking at possibly doing virtual camp this year.
So in our discussion with the hole in the wall camper Flying Horse, they actually did for other populations a virtual camp. They did a camp in a box. So they talked about that possibility for us as well. Or if we're willing to push we had a camp typically in June, because that seemed to be the best time for families to come to camp. But they're suggesting that we push it to October, and at that time we would hope to have an in-person camp. And it is typically just one day, but it's been always my dream to have an overnight camp. In the facility that we would be transitioning to has a fantastic overnight. They have everything in place. They talked about the bunking and the lodging. So that's sort of our the gold nugget that we're hoping for is a fall camp. Maybe just this year, one day, and then move into an overnight camp next year. And they're willing to, I guess they do a lot of you all are familiar with the hole in the wall camps, correct? The ballroom camp.
I
am not. I think we have some heads shaking no.
Yeah, so it's Paul Newman's baby. He birthed it, and there's different ones throughout the country. I think there's one in New York State. There was one in North Carolina that I actually went to as a staff nurse for a week to sort of get our foot into the Flying Horse before it was even built. However, they did not accept our population when they got the camp up and running. But there's been different directors, and so they're willing to look at our population once again. So we'll see. We're going to know probably by mid-February whether or not they're going to take us on, and then if they don't take us on, then we're going to go. Then I'm going to push to go to the drawing board and hopefully do a virtual camp, because I think it's needed. We really. We sort of, I think we let some people down this year or last year, and I feel bad about that. So I think we will do something.
Yeah.
Great.
If you're available, I'll give you a call right after this meeting. There's a hole-in-the-wall camp about 15 miles from the facility that we use, and we actually talked to them in length about 6-7 years ago. About merging into their camp, and there are some pros and cons, so I'd be happy to share those with you.
Sure, I would love to talk. I have a sense of those could be because of doing that Victory Junction camp when I went down there as a nurse. So yeah, I think so Donna Trentel is instrumental in the Colorado camp. She also has approached it with caution. She is at the table with us talking to the flying horse. So it'll be interesting. I think they have come a long way in their 6 years that they have existed here in Ohio, and I think that they're a little bit more flexible now. I think if we would have actually asked to have any kind of input in the programming, they probably would have said no way. But they're actually allowing us to help with the programming, particularly for counseling and having our psychologists on hand and integrating that kind of programming. But yes, we can definitely talk after this for sure.
Hey, I sent you a direct chat asking what a good phone number was for you. So if you could scroll up the chat and answer me back, that'd be great.
I certainly will. Thank you. Is that Daniel?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing and letting us know what's going on. I know we're getting close to the hour mark. I have to jump off actually at 1 o'clock today, and I'm sure Kristen or someone else, JD or Mackenzie or Tim or Madeline would be maybe open to staying on later. I just want to say in terms of the Venmo, is that the other two links Mackenzie will have on our social media. We'll try to also maybe put those on our website in terms of the communicable disease workshop as well as the ACA town hall. But for that Venmo, if that cannot be public, you can send out to your camp staff or anyone else you want. But because I had to pay a registration fee for the ACA, I don't know what the ACA, I don't want it to be tied to your camp or to the IABC, just in case we might get in trouble. However, I'm happy to send anyone who's interested any of the other recording sessions that were done during that conference, because I'm all about collaborative and sharing, but I also don't want to be a jerk to ACA. So let me know. I'm happy to send privately any other videos. But as we close up for today, I want to give Mackenzie, if she has an opportunity, a chance to talk about next month and why we framed this month to talk about what people are potentially doing. And then Mackenzie is going to talk about why that plays into next month and our topic, if she's available. No pressure, Mackenzie.
No, you're good. So, yeah, thank you guys for your patience with my co-host here. So next month we're really excited. Like I mentioned, we our camp partners with an organization called Camp Twin Lakes, and they are a nonprofit that serves about 60 partner camps with kids of all different life challenges, disease, diagnosis. So we're just one of the organizations they work with, and they did a really good job in a lot of things with COVID pivoting. But one of the things that they've done for us, and I sent it to the board and everybody loved it. So they're actually going to come on next month and talk to us about how they came up with their plan. They kind of have a flow of like plan A, B, C, D. And then they did a really good job talking about trigger points and like, here's kind of the threshold things need to be, and here's what it's going to look like. And so we just felt like it would be really helpful to really sit down and kind of have a template of how to do it. And because they work with so many different organizations, I felt like it would be a really good translation for us, because there's kind of, we're serving all of North America, and they serve, 60 camps across the state of Georgia. So I felt like it would be a good fit for, there'll be something for everybody. So we're really excited to have their program staff come on and kind of explain their process and how they approached it. And then of course, answer any questions and kind of go through that template.
Great. Any other announcements or comments before we end for today?
No, I just want to make sure that all of you received an email from me today. Just a reminder on membership. If you haven't re-upped your membership, please do so. I think we're sitting at 22 camps right now, and I think we had 35 members last year. So just make sure you get that in to us by the 31st. And if you're paying by check, make sure Kristen gets you an invoice and that you turn around and get that back to her by the 31st. So, and then the website will be updated at that point. That's about it.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, guys, I gotta go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I want to know if I can have my dog as a co-host next month.
If your dog's more well behaved.
Well, no.